Going to say I'm so happy to hear that you did awesome on the test yesterday.
I know.
I was actually in preparation, not that I doubted you or anything, but in my other class, my computer science class, there's a guy who's really discouraged because he just seems to be behind all of everybody.
Uh-huh.
But I was like pulling up the syllabus and seeing the grading scheme, and I was just going to be ready to pump you up and be like, yeah, maybe you didn't do too hot on that test, but we're like only a quarter of the way through the class. You're going to do great. Because I had to do that on the discussion forums with this guy in the computer science class.
Uh-huh.
But no, you freaking nailed that test. So
I know.
you don't
I
even
was,
need that pep talk.
yeah. I was totally brain dead after. Like I was like, I can't do anything else after this. But it was awesome. I was really proud of myself.
Well, and stats just totally builds up on itself. So it's super important that you understood all this stuff,
Yeah.
but the fact that you were able to not just do well, but
Hmm.
knock it out of the park, the fact that you did
Yeah.
awesome shows that you really understand it conceptually. And
Yeah.
we're just going to be adding one concept after another.
Hmm.
So you're going to be able to keep this momentum through the entire class, which is just
Yeah. Thank
awesome.
goodness. Because honestly, I was just like, if I just pass this test, I'll be good. I'll be happy. But like, I did really good. So I was whew, I was like, I went out, told my parents, and I was like, it's all because of my partner. He's awesome.
Thanks, you're sweet.
Uh,
I
but
need you. Would you mind doing me a favor? Not today,
yeah.
like, but like before the end of the semester.
Mhm.
Um, would you mind? Personally, I'd prefer it if you did kind of a YouTube thing like this and recorded it. But
Yeah.
if you could send just like a letter of recommendation to my tutoring boss, I would
Yeah.
love that so much.
No, I seriously can. Just remind me at the end of the semester, and we'll
Okay.
talk more about what kind of format 'and stuff like that. So yeah, totally will. Like here's a bomb.
Okay.
So
Because that would be huge for me
yeah.
because I have kind of a weird background. I went in, got my undergrad at BYU, then got my doctorate in pharmacy. I'm going back to school,
Yeah.
and I'm really excited about computer science. Like I've been just tinkering around, and like we've learned enough that I've made like this really nerdy like text adventure type thing. Like,
Yeah.
it's like you walk into a dungeon and you see a flask and you're like, hit flask, and it's like, what will you do with the flask? Drink, and it's like, oh, it's poison, you're dead. Like I'm having a lot of fun with it. But
Yeah.
ideally, even when I was back in BYU my first time around,
Uh-huh.
I've always wanted to teach.
Yeah.
But most people do teaching the academic way by
Mhm.
doing research and stuff. And I
Yeah.
hate research. Like, I just want to be a straight up teacher.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, yeah. So, if I can use this tutoring to kind of spring me board into that, so I'm programming and then teaching on the side, like even like night classes at Stephen Henniger's or something like that would just be fun
Yeah.
for me,
Well,
you
you're
know?
just like a natural born teacher. Like a lot of people don't have that skill. Like I don't. Like you heard me try to explain these concepts. I'm like, so it's kind of like this, and I'm like, but you're like super good at explaining it. So like it's definitely a skill, and I think you're really really good at it. Plus, I've
Thank
had a
you.
lot of tutors, so you're like
Because,
probably
yeah,
the
it's
one.
because that's the thing is academics teaching is just kind of flop because, well, here's the thing, and this is just me being a snot, but I don't want to teach high school or lower. I want to teach secondary education because
Yeah,
secondary education is when you're paying to be there. Well,
you
first
want.
off, it's you
Yeah.
you have all the high concepts, like the really fun abstract things, like the
Mhm.
stuff we're going over in the stats class. You would never teach this level of stats in high school.
Yeah.
And then also, students are paying to be there, so they're more invested, that kind of
Mhm.
stuff. But the thing is, if you want to teach in college, it really is. It's more like, okay, what was your thesis paper on? It's like, I don't want to do research. I just want to teach. So I'm,
Yeah.
I'm trying to find a back door into that. And if you could help me with that, I would love you forever.
Yeah, no, totally will. Like that's not a problem at all. I don't mind doing that. So
Okay,
yeah, I
perfect.
mean, you helped me out so much this semester, so the least I can do is do that for you.
Okay. Then, yeah, the further along we get in the semester, I'll give you a heads up what the best
Yeah,
format is, that kind of stuff. And that
seriously.
would be great.
Yeah, no, I don't mind at all. Yeah, I can do whatever. So just let me know.
Perfect. Do you got the quiz up?
I sure do.
Okay,
Yeah.
then let's go through this.
Okay. Okay. So this one is the null hypothesis, right?
Oh, hold on. I just got distracted. My little
You're
brother just sent me a message.
good. You're good.
I'm assuming he's still at work, but we found this and it was like, what the heck? So I'll screen share real quick so you can see
Okay.
it. Share. Make, that's not what I wanted. Where is it going? He's working in computer review. So he found all of these it's the computer things, like computer error messages and stuff in terms of cats. So I was like,
Misdirected request.
oh, and I saw this, and this is like the proudest little tiger I've ever seen. I love that. About to send that to him. But anyway, I have no idea why. But then after that,
No response.
yeah, I don't know how a cat can sleep like that.
That's hilarious.
But this is what he just sent. So it was a Google search. Cats are autofills with liquid. And then he sent these pictures. And it's just like, cats don't have bones. My gosh.
Oh my gosh, I love cats. Oh, that's so cute. That's how my cat looks.
It's so weird. My family's a dog and cat family. So half my siblings have dogs, and then me and my brother have cats. But yeah, it's like dogs you pick up and they're like a stiff board. Cats you pick up and they just like melt into your arm.
Yes. I
Like
just don't like dogs because they like, especially people who have indoor dogs. I'm not a fan because they jump up on you and they lick you and they ruin your clothes and they're just so, but cats are just like, come to me and pet me and that's it. Like they're just so
they're so low maintenance. I love it. And my cat, a lot of people say cats are snots, and they can be. But my cat is so Little Wednesday is so ridiculously affectionate. Like I love it. Like she does her own thing. She's low maintenance. She's kind of like, leave me alone when I want to sit in the sun.
Yeah.
But I think I told you this. I can't remember. But when I adopted her when she was really little, probably like 4 weeks old or something. And I'm not entirely sure, but I think she may have been taken away from her mother a little early, like before she was fully weaned off.
Yeah.
She has this thing where she has to lick my hand. And it's like she'll get like anxiety attacks if I'm not letting her lick. So if I'm like on the computer typing or playing a video game or something, she'll jump up on my lap and like nuzzle my hand away from the keyboard or the controller or whatever. We'll just do like a 10-15 minute hand licking section. And it's like you're petting her and you can like feel her heart rate slowing down and stuff. And it's like literally to do that like once a day, or she'll have like a panic attack and go hide under the bed.
Oh, it's like, kind of cute though.
Oh no, and I love it. She's so affectionate. She's like the sweetest little cat. And like she rather than sleeping like in the bed with me, she has to sleep on me. Which means if I'm sleeping on my back, I've gotten into a weird habit of like sleeping with like pretzel legs now. Like kind of hard to describe, but like because what will happen is if I'm sleeping with my legs straight, she loves to get down between my knees and just rest there and try and like create a hammock with the blanket. So naturally my legs split and then come back together, So she's either sleeping in a hammock between my legs, or if I'm sleeping on my side, she'll sleep on my hip, which I have no idea how it's comfortable for her. But yeah, it's to the point that it's like if I'm sleeping on my side and I'll feel it because like I'll wake up in the middle of the night to roll over. She'll like lumberjack crawl over me as I roll, so that she's never off of me at any point.
That's cute.
So she is a super affectionate and super sweet kitty. So when people tell me they're like, "Oh, I like dogs because they're more affectionate and playful," I'm like, You haven't met Wednesday. Wednesday is the sweetest thing
Yeah,
ever.
my cat's cute. I mean, she's not like that, but she'll sleep in, she'll cuddle up next to me and, but she'll get up and like when I wake morning, be there, but like cuddle up next to me when I go to sleep and stuff. She's cute. She's cute. I love cats. Cats are cute. But, yeah.
Okay.
Oh yeah.
Okay, sorry
Our
for that
teacher's gonna watch the
distraction.
video, and she's gonna be like, "What's wrong with these people?" I'm like, "Yes, this is why our meetings take 3 hours. It's fine." Oh man,
And
cheeks
you've
hurt
got
from
a
smiles. Okay.
well, you've got a nice old 16-year-old cat.
Yeah, she's very mellow and it's very old.
I come from a big family. My oldest brother was on his mission when my youngest brother was born. So that's the
Oh,
span we're looking at. There's 8 kids.
wow. Okay.
Yeah. So so that's the span, which means that I have a niece who, oh my gosh, long story short, her father died in a drunk driving accident.
Oh my gosh.
And don't feel I feel bad saying this. I'm like, don't feel too bad for him.
Yeah.
He cheated on my sister. They're divorced, and like, so now she's married to a doctor, and all things are better and stuff.
Yeah.
But obviously, it was really hard for both my sister and my niece because that was her dad.
Yeah.
But he died in a drunk driving accident, and in his will, he left it split between my sister and his daughter. And
Yeah.
so my niece just turned 18 and just came into $1.4 million. Yeah, I'm like, holy crap.
So what is she gonna do with it?
I hope she uses it responsibly because the fact is, it's her money. It was literally her parents didn't tell her about it until her 18th birthday, where by law, she was required to know about it. So they brought in like the lawyers and stuff, and it's just kind of like, hey, this is legally your money. Your parents can no longer hold it for you as a trustee.
Whoa.
And so, like, my sister and her husband, just for the last few years, have been trying to instill in her, like, first things first, you pay for school, you invest, you spend this wisely. And it's just like, so. But no, the thing that blew my mind.
Yeah.
The thing that just blew my mind is just the fact that, because even more than that, the thing that blew my mind is I was like, holy crap, Roxy is 18, which means my oldest niece was born almost 20 years ago. I'm like, I feel so freaking old.
Oh my gosh.
But on top of that, and this ties back to your cat, is one of my brothers has a cat that was born the year Roxy was born. So he's got an 18-year-old cat.
And how's that cat doing? Is she still like mentally there?
He's there. He's an indoor cat, so he's never had to worry about, obviously the biggest thing, cars or disease and that kind of stuff. Plus that brother is like super loaded. He's living off in Chicago making way too much money. So he's the type of cat where, like, I'm trying to think.
Spoiled.
I don't think he's had his appendix removed, but the family is affluent enough that it wouldn't be an issue to pay for an appendicitis for a cat, appendectomy for a cat,
Oh yeah, that's funny.
Like most families would be like, we're gonna have to put him down. Ben would just be like, oh, that's how much it costs? Give him 2. Like, seriously.
Dang, what does your brother do in Chicago?
The thing is, nobody knows. It's like, probably works for the mob, I'm assuming.
Seriously though, I'm like, wait a second.
He graduated from Chicago. He got his MBA from a school in Chicago. And he's been jumping around. He worked for a while for Merrill Lynch, which is a big name if you're in business. And he's a financial consultant, so he tells people how to invest their money and that kind of stuff.
Okay, yeah.
So when you're a financial consultant for Merrill Lynch, that's huge. You're telling a big company what they need to invest in.
Yeah.
And then he actually jumped ship and bailed on them for a different job to work for a friggin' Swiss bank. And like Swiss
Whoa.
bank, that's when you start getting into like James Bond territory where
That's
you're like,
what I was
I don't
saying.
think this is real.
Seriously though, that's where like all the rich people put their money.
Yeah. And then jump ship again, and I literally have no idea what he's doing. I just know that about half a decade ago, he flew us all in to celebrate him making $1 million in one fiscal year. So he's like, I'm officially a millionaire. Everybody fly in. Let's celebrate. And we're just like, you're making way too much money, Ben.
Like, can I work for him? Like,
Yeah.
jeez, that's
Yeah,
crazy.
so yeah, Bunsen is doing just fine, and the biggest threat to him are their three little girls. Seriously, it's like if anything were to happen to Bunsen, they have the money. It's so funny because my sister is just a total bleeding. My sister-in-law is a total bleeding heart.
Yeah.
And the idea of declawing Bunsen is just a huge no-no.
You're like,
Like, I haven't declawed Wednesday, but that's because she's super easy to clip her claws. It's literally, I sit her down on my lap,
yeah.
stick out her claws, and clip, clip, clip. And like she'll meow a bit, but she doesn't hiss or bite or anything. She's super easy with it.
Yeah.
And then when she does scratch, it's always her scratching post. Bunsen's the type of cat, if you pop his claws out, he begins to kind of freak out, you know? And so it's just kind of like, oh, let's just hire a professional manicurist to do that for him. You know, so he's got these weird little clip-ons. They're like plastic clip-ons that you put over your cat's nails that prevent them from scratching. But they have to be applied pretty frequently, and they just have like a regular cat person that does that for them. Like, that's the kind of money that they have. They're just like,
My goodness.
well, we
What
can't
is
get Bunsen
life?
declawed. Yeah, it's like we can't get Bunsen declawed, but we don't want him scratching up our furniture. And
Yeah.
trying to clip his claws ourselves is a huge pain. So let's just take him to this cat salon like once every 2 weeks and just have him do it for us. So that cat's freaking
Great
living the
to live
life.
like that. That's
Oh
awesome.
yeah, that cat's living the life. It's ridiculous.
Man. Wow. Well, if he ever needs a secretary, let him know about me. My goodness, that's crazy.
I would. I'm just afraid of getting you mixed in with some things because I literally don't know what he does.
That's like a little sketchy.
I'm like, you could totally. Well, the funny thing is, it happened with my dad too when I was growing up. He's a computer programmer.
Yeah.
And he was on the cutting edge of computers. He got into computers back in the 80s, back when, like a desktop was a luxury for a business.
Yeah.
And just unheard of for the average family,
Mm-hmm.
So he started with the industry and has been growing with it as it's been going on. And because of that, his expertise, he would often fly across the globe to help install programs and operating systems and making sure that things were working, because back when he was doing it, so few people knew about computers that they literally needed an expert from America to show them how to do it,
And they would call him.
So yeah, there's all these theories floating around my ward and my neighborhood about how my dad was actually CIA, because there's no reason that Scott Nielsen should be flying out to Mumbai or something.
Oh my gosh, that's funny.
Yeah, he'd be going crazy places, and it was like we can never tell if he was. We could never tell whether he was the bad guy or if he was just a really bad secret agent. Because like he would go places and things would happen. Like I remember he had a business trip one time to England, and while he was out there, there's this really big subway bombing that occurred, and it was like all over the news and stuff. So back in America, my ward was talking. We're like, wait, was that your dad or was that your dad failing? Like.
I mean, like, which one was it?
Well, and then one of the weirdest ones ever, because freaking, like, he went to Europe quite a bit, went to Australia quite a bit, basically first world nations, is basically where he went.
Yeah.
One time he went to Kenya, which is like, why? When he was in Kenya, there was a terrorist bus bombing. And we're like, what the heck? Like,
You got a CIA, man.
exactly.
Seriously, I'm like, coincidence?
Yeah, so we're like trying to figure out my dad, we're like, what? Plus when he was younger, um, he was born and raised in Utah, so he knows how to ski.
Yeah.
So he was a ski instructor and got really into it. So like he'd be the one that'd be hitting the jumps and doing flips and stuff. So I remember going to one of those. Have you ever been to like what do they call them? I can't remember what they're called, but they're like gyms, but specifically for people who aren't gymnasts. And so it's just like basically bouncing around and playing in foam pits and that kind of stuff. Like, you know what I'm
Oh, yeah,
talking about?
yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, my family went there for a family reunion one time. My neighbors were with us, and my dad's in his
Mhm.
50s, and he's jumping on a tramp, and he does a backflip, and it's like my neighbors just kind of look at each other, and they're like, "What's wrong with Scott?" Or like,
Uh,
"He's totally a secret agent."
they're
No
like,
way.
I knew he was a secret agent.
Yeah. So
My
my
goodness.
family has a history of we don't know what people do for a living. We just let them be.
It's normal. It's fine.
Whatever. And until we see their face in the news, we'll just assume. We'll just hope for the best.
Ignore it. Oh gosh, that's hilarious.
Okay.
Oh man.
It is already 5:15. We should probably do this quiz.
Okay. Yeah, okay, we got this. Okay.
Okay.
So
Actually, hold on 1 second.
okay.
Okay. Just had to turn off the oven. Okay. Question 3. Which hypothesis, the null or the alternative, involves equality? So the equal signs.
So is that the null hypothesis?
Okay. What ones does the alternative hypothesis include?
That's the not equal to, less than, and greater than.
Okay. What about the true hypothesis? Which ones does that one include?
I assume it would just be mm, um hmm, maybe the same as the alternative hypothesis? Like one of those
No.
three?
Trick question. True hypothesis is nothing.
Okay.
So that was just some vocab that they threw out to make sure that you understood that the two we're dealing with is null and alternative.
Okay. That makes sense. I was like, I don't really know, but I'm gonna guess. Okay.
Yeah. No, I'm not sure how it is with. Let me think. I don't think you told me what are you doing? Are you going to be more like dietitian, nutrition type stuff? Are you going to be more
Um,
physical therapy? What are you doing
so
with your health degree?
so I'm doing healthcare administration. So it's gonna be more administrative stuff like policies and procedures and
Okay.
making sure the
Then
hospital runs smoothly and stuff like that. You know, the boring stuff.
okay. No, then this is actually good advice because you're going to be hearing a lot of jargon. But my my neighbor is like in charge of like the IT department for like all of BYU.
hmm
And he was telling me when he interviews people, because computers is just full of jargon,
hmm
he told me that when he's interviewing people, he'll make up acronyms off of the top of his head and ask people if they're fluent in that. And if they don't confess and say that, like if they don't confess and they're like, "Oh, I've never heard of that before," like the correct answer is, I've never heard of that language before, but I'm very flexible and I'm quick to learn languages and that kind of stuff. If
Yeah.
someone says, yes, I'm very fluent in that, then he knows, like, he doesn't stop the interview right there, but he just knows, makes a note. He's like, okay, we're not hiring this guy.
Oh
So,
man.
keep that in mind. If someone throws a curveball at you, like they literally may be throwing a curveball at you. So if someone asks you something that you don't know, don't lie. Just be like, I haven't heard of that, but
But
I'm a quick learner and I know where to find things. And if you've seen Pursuit of Happiness, he gives the perfect answer to that, where he's like, I don't know that, but I'm the type of person who knows where to find things, and if I tell you that I can do something for you, I will do it. Like that's the type of response you want to give to that. So never lie and be like, oh yeah, like back in BYUI, like that I had an entire course on CPSQ, like totally.
Totally, I know all about that. You're like,
Yeah. So totally, yeah, totally fess up because they seriously may be just throwing you a curveball to see if you'll lie to their face.
on purpose.
Yeah, because if you lie to their face, that's not, that's not the type of person you want to hire.
Yeah, really though.
Okay, question 4. Remember, the p-value is the probability of obtaining a sample statistic at least as extreme as the one that was actually observed. Okay, so this is what we're talking about. In regards to the p-value, the
We always
p-value is, what's the assumption with the p-value?
that the null hypothesis is true.
Exactly.
Wait.
Because, yeah, the entire point is that if we have something with a p-value of 0.021, then that's extreme. That's an extreme outlier if our null hypothesis is true.
Yeah.
If the alternative hypothesis is true, then that's not an extreme outlier. That falls within our normal range. So the p-value is in the assumption that the null hypothesis is true. Okay. Okay, question 5. Which one represents a two-tailed test?
Whoa. Okay, let's see.
Do you remember what a two-tailed test is?
Yeah, it's when it's not equal to, like, we were kind of talking about how if it's less than, we use the left-hand side. If it's greater than, it's the right-hand side. If it's not equal to, it's the both tails.
Yeah, perfect. So you got question 5 there.
Oh yeah, okay, it's right there.
I was wondering why you seemed confused. I'm like, you answered that perfectly. Did you not see the answers?
Yeah, I guess I saw a lot of weird stuff. I was like, oh, kind of panicked a little bit, I guess. Cool. So the left-hand side would be the less than sign.
Mm-hmm.
And then that would be the greater than sign.
Okay.
Easy peasy. Okay.
Comparing the p-value to the level of significance, or alpha. What's alpha?
Alpha is level of significance, which is
What does it mean in practical terms?
the amount of uncertainty we're willing to accept.
Perfect.
Woo!
That's such a better definition than level of significance.
Yes.
You hear the level of significance, and it's just, well, that's another name for alpha. If you hear it's the level of uncertainty we're willing to accept in this experiment, that changes everything.
Makes way more sense. Yeah.
Yes. Okay, perfect. Okay, how do we calculate alpha?
So we're looking at, you're talking about the numbers like 0.05?
So, you have to go to the applet to get the p-value.
Oh.
And we've got the equation for z-score.
Yes.
How do we calculate it? How do we calculate alpha?
So the p-value is the area, correct?
Yes.
And then the alpha is the okay, wait, I know this. I just have to think about it for a second. It's the highlighted part. Or like, I guess the unhighlighted part, maybe?
No, that's just 1 minus p.
Do like 1 minus whatever it is, and then you can find out if it's above or below the alpha.
No, trick question.
Oh gosh.
We don't calculate
you told
alpha.
me that. You can't do it. Gosh dang it.
We determine alpha before we ever start the experiment. So
I remember you saying that.
if you remember the acronym, David can discern more truth.
Yes.
The first D, designing the study. Assigning the alpha is during the design portion.
Yeah.
So before we've collected any data, we've already decided the alpha.
Dang it. You're right.
You will never calculate an alpha. They will always give it to you. And if in some weird instance they don't give it to you, what's the assumed value?
0.05.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, so knowing that, moving forward, that doesn't have anything to do with question 8, but question 8, which relationship would result in failing to reject the null hypothesis?
Okay, so if the p-value is less than a, then we reject it. So if we fail to reject it, then we want the p-value to be greater than a.
Yes.
Okay.
And I know the verbiage is really weird because it says reject the null hypothesis as opposed to saying accept the alternative hypothesis. It says failed to reject the null hypothesis.
Yeah.
The verbiage is really weird. If it doesn't come up in the next lesson, I'll explain why they do that.
Yeah.
But just know that there's a reason behind that. Like it's wordy and it's kind of annoying, but there's an actual reason that they do that.
Okay. I was like, yeah, I feel like they could have worded that a little bit better, but I mean, who's asking me, right?
I know there's an actual reason for it. And so okay, so question 9.
And would be p-value is less than a.
Perfect. Insurance. Okay. So before, it's question 11, so we'll get there anyway. Okay, so question 10. What's the alternative hypothesis?
It's gonna be the average claim amount is greater than 1,500.
That's greater. Okay, perfect. Okay, and the null hypothesis?
The average claim amount is equal to 1,500.
Perfect. Okay, and now we have an X bar and an N. We'll see if they give us, let's see, questions, next 3 questions. So they don't give us a sigma or anything, so it doesn't look like we're going to have to do calculations yet.
Okay.
Okay. So n equals 40. The sample of that, the mean of that sample of 40 is 1650. The insurance company assumes the distribution of the sample mean is normal. Is this a good assumption? Why?
It is good since the sample size is large.
Yes. And the next question, we drilled this into each other's heads these last few weeks because we kept getting it wrong. What theorem or law justifies your answer?
Central.
Yes. What does the law of large numbers state?
It's all about the spread of the numbers. So the larger the sample size, the smaller the standard deviation will be.
Exactly. So yeah, both of them are correlated with large numbers.
Hmm.
You have large enough numbers, it's going to be normally distributed. And law of large numbers is if you have a lot, if you the larger your sample size, the smaller the standard deviation. But make sure which large numbers go into which. They
Yeah.
named those two things poorly. My gosh, because you see large numbers and you're like law of large numbers.
Oh, yeah,
We
yeah, yeah.
both got that wrong like 3 times in a
I
row.
know. Seriously. Okay, which of the following? Ooh, ooh, ooh. This is Z-score.
Yes. Yeah, this was what I was talking about that I couldn't find. They change it up, and for some reason they just call the test statistic the Z-score.
Okay,
And
yeah.
so it's just a new word for the Z-score is test statistic. So whenever you see test statistic, I don't know why I'm having trouble saying that. Whenever you see that, just in your mind replace it with a Z-score because you are super familiar with the Z-score at this point.
Yeah, I know it. Yeah. Okay. Test. Actually, I'm gonna write that down really fast. Okay. All right. Okay, now we have to do Z-score.
We got mean, standard deviation, an alpha, and a sample size. Okay, this is requiring my Excel sheet.
I got 3.604.
Okay, what'd you get for the Z-score?
Oh, I missed the part. Sorry, I forgot. I didn't see the 36 sales
Oh,
sale
okay.
receipts, so I have to. Sorry.
Oh, you're good.
Just let me read you that really fast. Did you get negative 0.9?
Yes.
Okay. Cool.
Okay, so the p-value.
All right, this is what.
Put the Z-score in, and which part of the graph are we looking at to find this p-value?
Okay, so we're gonna look at. Historical mean of sales. So it says the manager suspects that the average has decreased. So do we look at the left-hand side?
Yes, the left-hand side of what, though?
Let's see.
So are we looking at the first third or the first 2/3?
Just the first third.
And why?
Because our z-score was negative.
Exactly. Perfect.
Okay. Would be the area, correct?
Yeah.
Okay. So we would so larger than, so 0.9, negative 0.9 is larger than,
Oh, hold on. What do we compare to alpha?
Air 1.
Say what?
I'm like Air 1. The type 1 error. We can. Do we compare? Oh gosh. Okay, so it says level of significance is 0.05.
Yes, so that's our alpha.
So 0.9 is less than that. So,
Why are you comparing it to 0.9?
oh, I mean the p-value. Okay, wait, I'm
There,
looking at the p-value.
there you go.
Okay, so that p-value is larger than 0.05, so we fail to reject the null hypothesis.
Perfect.
Okay.
Because alpha, what again is alpha in conceptual terms, not definition terms?
Alpha is the amount of uncertainty we're willing to accept.
Okay. And then what's the p-value?
The p-value is um the I like how you say it. Okay, the p-value is I totally took notes on what you said actually.
The p-value is assuming that the null hypothesis is true. The
Yes.
odds that we got the odds that are forgot how
Okay,
I
the
said it.
p-value, the odds of getting your sample due to any reason other than random chance.
Yes. Yeah. So if we're interpreting it that way, what does this p-value say? How large? What is um, what is the probability that we got this z-score? Well, actually, what's the probability that we had a mean of 144 that's due to random chance?
Um, okay. Say it again.
So as you know, everything is normally distributed,
Yes.
and the further we go away from the mean, that
Yeah.
increases the z-score. But the
Yeah.
thing is, that's normal for a normally distributed population. So what happens is we take that z-score, we translate it into a p-value, and that p-value tells us what the odds are of getting that score if the mean is true.
Okay, yeah, because we want the p-value to be, if the null hypothesis is true, we want the p-value to be small.
Yes.
Because that's kind of saying it's a small chance of us getting that answer by anything other than random chance.
Yeah. So what are the odds of question 16? What are the odds of getting a sample from of getting a mean from a sample of 36 receipts that is equal to $144? What's the probability of that?
Low.
I'll give you a hint. It's the answer to question 16.
Oh. It's 0.184.
Okay. So the probability that just due to random chance that we got this score due to the natural curve is 18%, 18.41%.
Yeah.
That's pretty reasonable. That's almost a 1 in 5 chance, you know. So the fact is, what would happen? Well, let me think about how to phrase this. So what if we were to take this and be like, this is an outlier, and we need to reject the null hypothesis? What does that 18.4% mean?
It means okay. It means that it's an 18% chance that
Of
of um why is this not clicking in my brain? It's an 18% chance that it happened. That we got 144 by not random chance. No?
yes, we're just trying to tweak it a little bit in a little different direction.
Yeah.
So that means that there's some factors in there, but there's, you know, a good 1 in 5 chance that this is just part of the normal distribution, which we're totally fine with. If we were to, let's say that we took this 18.41% and rejected the null hypothesis.
Okay.
Does that kind of help? What does that kind of help point in the right direction? What does that 18.41% represent if we are rejecting the null hypothesis? Or let me put it this way.
Is it the error going on?
Oh, yes, perfect.
Okay.
So the p-value, another way to think of the p-value is the chance that you will make a type 1 error.
Yes, we talked about that. Alpha. Yes, okay.
Yes. So we have an 18.41% chance of making a type 1 error.
Mm-hmm.
What is our threshold for acceptability when it comes to uncertainty?
0.05.
So 18 is obviously larger than 5.
Yes.
Is that an acceptable amount of uncertainty?
Yes. Wait, 18% is unacceptable.
Yeah, that's way too big. We have a 1 in 5. We basically have a 1 in 5 chance of making a mistake here.
Yes.
So that's way too big. So do we reject the null hypothesis or fail to reject?
We failed to reject it.
Yes. And does that make sense? Because we're saying 5% we'll take being wrong 1 out of 20. We'll take being wrong 1 out of every 20 experiments.
Mm-hmm.
That's a good buffer. Here we're saying there's an 18.5% chance that we're wrong. And we're like, wait, no, that's totally unacceptable. That's a 1 in 5 chance. We're looking at a 1 in 20 chance of being wrong. That's not precise at all.
Yeah.
So we are going to fail to reject the null hypothesis. Status quo remains the same.
Okay.
So does that make sense conceptually what we're doing here?
Yes, getting there.
We'll have probably another example or two in this quiz, and obviously kind of possible.
Yeah.
I just hate the idea as a tutor, and like I said, wanting to teach. I hate the idea of people just learning things mathematically and not learning it conceptually. Because if you understand things, if you have the equations memorized, you can still get things wrong by not knowing how to apply the equations.
Yeah.
If you understand the concepts, you can usually write out the equations yourself.
Mm-hmm.
So it's very important for me not to just plug and chug, throw out the equations and put things together, but to conceptually understand why we do the things that we're doing.
Yeah. No, I'm Definitely grateful.
Okay. Question 18. Conclusion for conclusion for this problem.
So we have insufficient evidence that okay, so is that saying less than? So the alternative hypothesis was they thought it was less than 150. So we have insufficient evidence that the true population mean is less than 150.
Perfect. Okay. Question 19.
Ooh.
However, whichever way you want to remember this.
The criminals.
So rejecting the null hypothesis when the null hypothesis is true. When it comes to a criminal, I mean, when it comes to law, what's the null hypothesis?
The null hypothesis is you're innocent until proven guilty.
So what would rejecting the null hypothesis when the null hypothesis is true, what would that be equivalent to?
Accusing someone who's innocent as being guilty.
Exactly. And so you remember that?
Type 1.
Perfect.
Ooh, I like that example.
Whichever way makes it easier for you to remember. For some reason, alpha and beta help me. If that criminal analogy works for you, use that.
Yeah, no, it totally does. So, all right.
Okay, this one's pretty straightforward. Actually, this one isn't straightforward. This is an interesting question. So conceptually, what's alpha?
The level of uncertainty that we're willing to accept.
Okay. So basically, the chance that we would accept a type 1 error, right?
Yes.
So if you're dropping alpha from 0.5 to 0.1, does the probability of a type 1 error increase?
It decreases.
Exactly.
So that would be the probability that the null hypothesis is true will decrease.
The probability that the null hypothesis is true will decrease. So what's wrong with this statement?
Wait, you're talking about question 20?
Yeah, so on question 20, answer number 3, the probability that the null hypothesis is true will decrease. Why is that statement wrong?
Probability. Oh, sorry. It's the probability that, oh, wait. Oh, the probability of a type 1 error will increase is the right answer. Because the probability that the null hypothesis is true will decrease. That has nothing to do with A or alpha. Because the probability is the p-value, and those are two different things.
Yeah, so the fact is the probability that the null hypothesis is true, that's in a vacuum when as it compares to alpha. It's either true or it's not. And the value that we set for alpha isn't going to change whether it's true or not. It's just it's binary. It's true or it's not, and there's no way we can affect that.
Yeah.
We can only learn if it's true. And so, what's wrong with the first statement?
The probability of a type 1 error will increase.
Yeah.
That's wrong?
Yes.
Oh. I guess you're right, because the probability again is referring to like p-value.
So the smaller our p-value, the lower the smaller the chances that we'll make a type 1 error.
Oh, so it means his experiment will be more scientifically valid, because if you're making the level of significance smaller, then you're accepting less uncertainty. So which means your results are more valid. Dang,
which makes
okay.
a lot of sense.
Mm-hmm.
But the crazy thing is that's wrong.
What?
And it's because of the second answer.
The probability of a type 2 error will increase?
Yes. It barely touched on in the reading. And I think in another lesson when beta comes into play, we'll see it. And it's not a 1-to-1 ratio.
Yeah.
But the thing is, as A decreases, B increases. And so if you're to put your alpha to
Oh, I did
0.01,
say that.
yeah. So
Big
if you
number.
put your alpha to 0.01, you have a tiny chance of making a type 1 error, but your chance of making a type 2 error increases. So therefore your study may not be more scientifically valid because you may have decreased the chance of making one error, but you just increase the chance of making another error.
Oh, and that's why they use the 0.05 because it seems to be just the right number.
Exactly.
Okay, I remember that. They literally gave like a paragraph, maybe.
Yeah, it's like a sentence, not even a paragraph. But yeah,
Dang,
when
that one
beta
tripped me up. That one tripped me up a lot.
well, but when beta pops up, you'll see that. As
Oh,
alpha decreases, beta increases, and beta represents the chance that we're going to be making a type 2 error.
mhm,
And so you'll see that as our chance of making a type 1 error decreases, the chance of making a type 2 error increases, and vice versa. So
mhm,
yeah, exactly what you said. 0.05 is what we tend to stick with
mhm,
because it means there's a 1 in 20 chance that we're making a type 1 error, which we're fine with. And then it keeps the type 2 errors to, I can't remember the exact numbers, but it keeps it at a pretty small enough figure so that it bumps it up from like 1 in 20 experiments to like, I think this is off the top of my head, but we'll probably see it in another lesson. I think it means if you have a alpha of 0.05, and if I'm remembering, I think beta is affected by sample size.
okay.
So if you have an alpha of 0.05 and a decent um, sample size,
Mhm.
then your beta will probably range between like 2 or 3% or something like that. But as your sample size decreases, then your beta increases. So all in all, I don't know what the math is, but basically when it comes down to it, you'll be 5% chance of making a type 1, whatever percent chance of making a type 2 error. And basically it comes around that one way or another, one in every about 15 experiments is actually incorrect.
Mhm.
So our alpha states one in every 20 experiments will be making a type 1 error specifically. But when you take type 1 and type 2 in together, it's about one in every 15 experiments is faulty.
Okay.
But that's still um, acceptable because we do so much redundancy and we do experiments over and over again on the same things.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was a tricky question.
Yeah, that tripped me up a lot. That was anyways, okay. So 21. I can pay the bill. How do we do this one?
So what's alpha again?
The level of uncertainty or the amount of uncertainty we're willing to accept.
Okay, so what is the smallest possible p-value that we're willing to accept?
Um, can it be equal to 0.05 or can it be equal to 0.05?
Essentially, because the fact is 0. You know, 0.04999999 forever
Mm-hmm.
is less than 0.05, but it's essentially 0.05.
Yeah.
So the smallest p-value we're willing to accept is a 0.05 because of our alpha. What does p-value represent?
The probability of um um gosh, I can never put in my own words.
In
P-value.
regards to type 1 and type 2 errors, what's the p-value?
Gosh, people keep texting. I'm sorry.
No
So
problem.
we want the p-value. What am I saying? I'm trying to
So
read over my notes.
scroll back up to question 16 real quick.
Okay.
So the answer to question 16
So
was
the p.
0.1841. What does that p-value mean?
That means there's 18% chance that the results we got are not from random chance.
Which means that if we accepted the null hypothesis, that's an 18% chance. I mean, if we rejected the null hypothesis, that's an 18.41% chance of what?
If we rejected it, it's that the results are random.
Yes, but so let's see. Let me just think real quick. Okay. So basically, we're saying that the odds of getting, what was it, $144? The odds of getting $144 due to something other than random chance is 18%.
Yes.
What does that 18% represent?
The amount of uncertainty.
Oh, yeah. What's another way to say that?
The oh, the oh, um, alpha. The like level of significance. So like, um, sorry, it's so it's like. My brain doesn't want to work right now. I'm so sorry. It's
Yeah.
like,
You'll
stop
get
thinking.
you'll get more practice on Tuesday. I'm just dragging you through the mud on this because I want it to instill in your
No,
brain.
no, it's fine. I just like it like kind of yeah.
But you're
Uh,
totally right. The p-value is the odds of getting this value due
uh-huh.
to something other than random chance. So in
Yes.
other words, we're wrong with the null value. But the thing is, that was last unit. What's the definition for p-value in this new unit?
Um well, we're taking a step further by analyzing it.
Mm-hmm.
Um and we want to
So here's the question. If p-value is greater than alpha, what do we do?
Mhm. We reject it. P-value is greater. We fail to reject it.
Why? What are we worried about?
If the p-value is um so we want the p-value to be less than A.
Why?
Oh.
You're getting there step by step. I can see it in your brain.
So it means that the probability of the random chance, the not or we want it to be random chance. We want the p-value to be less than A because we want the p-value which represents pretty much that if it's too high, we can't rely on that that thing.
And if it's
So
not reliable and we accept it, what are we at risk of doing?
Committing type 1 error.
Perfect.
Oh, sorry.
So for this unit, you're completely right. The p-value is the odds of getting a value due to something other than random chance.
Yeah.
So that's the definition. In this new unit, though, since we've taken the test, in this new unit, the p-value is equal to the chance of committing a type 1 error.
Yeah.
So does that make sense?
Yes.
That's why we want p-value smaller than alpha, because the p-value is the probability of us committing a type 1 error.
Yes.
At this point, it's 18.4%.
Yes.
Whereas the threshold of uncertainty that we set is 5%. And we're saying 5% is 5, 18% is no good.
Yes.
So the p-value, so moving forward, the p-value is the probability of committing a type 1 error.
Okay.
That makes sense?
Yes.
Okay. Now let's go back down and look at that last question.
Okay.
Okay. So alpha is 0.05. What is the smallest p-value that we're willing to accept?
0.05.
So what are the odds that we're making a type 1 error?
0.05.
Exactly.
Oh, that's so easy.
There you go.
Oh man, I'm like, that's so funny. Okay. I think the p-value, the alpha, and like all that's kind of connected now in my brain.
Okay, good.
Get the relationship with them. Like I think.
Because honestly, for question 21, the answer is the probability of committing a type 1 error is your alpha. Well, provided you're willing to stick with your alpha. But the thing is, that's a definition.
Yeah.
And I wanted you to think of it conceptually, so I drug you through the mud.
No, I'm so grateful.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, yes. It makes...
So the p-value moving forward is the probability that we will commit a type 1 error. We don't want to commit type 1 errors, so we arbitrarily set an alpha, usually at 0.05, because then that means we have a 1 in 20 chance of committing a type 1 error, which is acceptable. But what would be even more acceptable is if we did a 0.01% chance, 0.01. But the problem with that is if we decrease the alpha, beta gets bigger. So we figured 0.05 is kind of the best place to put it.
Kind of the magic number.
Yes. So the p-value, so moving forward, everything that you learned from the last section, which you obviously learned because you aced that test and freaking nailed it out of the ballpark.
Yeah.
Moving forward, two things tweak a little bit. P-value no longer refers to the odds of getting a value due to circumstances other than random chance. The p-value is simply the probability of committing a type 1 error. So the definition for p-value is changed. The z-score is now referred to as the statistical score. So keep that in mind. So those two things have changed, and now we've added the alpha, which is not something we can calculate. It's not something we can compute. It's simply something we decide during the design study of our experiment. And for the most part, we stick with the 0.05 because it keeps beta small while also ensuring that we're going to make a small amount of type 1 errors.
Yeah.
So all that makes sense?
Yes.
Okay.
And I can say that with confidence. Yes.
Okay, awesome.
Okay.
Let's look at this real quick and I'll see what we get.
Okay.
And that's 100%. So you are safe to submit.
Woohoo! It's a good feeling when it's 100%. Cool. Do you have any plans for this weekend for Memorial Day?
This weekend, I've got... No. Actually, no, I do. I'm excited. I was like, I just got some code that I need to write for my computer science program. And it's stupid because it's not even code because we're working on design right now, which
Yeah.
means that we're like writing out spreadsheets and spider webs and that kind of stuff. And I'm just like, I don't want to design this stuff. I want to write the actual code. Like, I don't know. I'm just like, I'm kind of annoyed with this design module that we're working on
Yeah.
because I'm more the type I'm like, I know how to prep without having a class telling me this is what you should do before you start a project. I'm like, I know how to do this already.
I already got this. Yeah.
Which ironically the planning and designing is taking a lot longer than actual writing code.
Mm,
If you just like start off and you're just like just going off and just checking as you go,
yeah.
that's just known as dry coding. And my dry coding is actually pretty quick. Like
Yeah.
because as I'm going, I'm just kind of thinking how I want to build it.
Yeah.
So I got to work on that, which is boring. But the exciting thing is, and I'm really excited about this,
Hmm.
is my nephew.
Hmm.
Are you familiar with Utah?
Ish. Yeah.
How familiar? Did you visit
Um,
here? You live here?
I lived in Idaho, so I always visited my family in Utah, Provo area mostly.
Okay. So the
Yeah.
Provo area. So you know where
Yeah.
Spanish Fork is?
Yeah, it's like 10 minutes down the road from,
Exactly. Yeah.
yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So I have a nephew who lives down in Spanish Fork, and he is
Mhm.
getting ordained a deacon. And so I get to go down for the ordination on Sunday
Oh,
and be
fun.
the priesthood circle and stuff. And that's super fun because he is the second oldest of the nieces and nephews. And like
Uh-huh.
I was telling you, Roxy just turned 18. But then
Yeah.
there's a huge gap. And so 6 years, and then we had Adam. And
Hmm.
so this is the first priesthood holder of the third generation in my family. So we're super excited. So
Oh,
this is
cool.
this is the first my parents will be back soon, but they're missing it. But yeah, so with my parents, this
Hmm.
is the first of their grandchildren to get the priesthood.
Oh,
So
cool.
it's super exciting. So I'm really stoked for that.
Oh, that's so awesome. I have 12 nieces and nephews, and
Oh
they're
wow.
all under the age of 8.
Awesome.
Yeah,
That's gonna
so
be really sweet. How many siblings do you have?
I have 4 older brothers. So they're all married and all have kids and stuff. So it's
Oh,
that's
okay. That's a good extended family because I've got 7 brothers and sisters, and
Mhm.
we are up to 21 grandkids. But the thing is, considering how many you have with 4 siblings, that pretty much evens out.
Yeah.
And me and my youngest brother still aren't married, so we can contribute. So by
Yeah.
the end, it'll probably be around 25, 26 when all is
Yeah.
said and done.
Yeah, I think I know one of my sisters, she still wants to have 3 more kids. She
Oh
has
my
3. She
God.
wants to have 3 more. I know, I'm like, you're crazy.
How many does she have?
She just had her third, and she says she wants at least 2 more, but hoping for 3 more.
Oh
And
wow.
then I have another sister, and she has 4 kids, and she wants another one. She just told me that she's trying for another one. So I was like, oh, that's so exciting. And then it got really dark in my room. Hold up. And then um and then obviously me, like I want kids too, so I want like 4. So we'll see what ends up
That's
happening.
a good number nowadays.
Yeah. I like
Yeah,
4. I mean,
that is a good number. Like I'm thinking my oldest brother has 6 girls, and they're thinking about
mhm.
adopting because he really wants a son.
Yeah.
But it's like they kept shooting for a son and they kept getting girls. They're like, now we have 6. What do we do? And
That's
so
so
they're
funny.
seriously thinking about adopting. But yeah, they have 6. The next oldest has 3. Angel has 4, which is a manageable number. But
Mhm.
then Eric has got Adam, Tessa, Gwen, Caleb, and Greta. So they're at 5, and I think they're done. But five would be a handful for me. And
I
then my
personally think
sister,
5 would
then my
be,
sister has 2, and I'm not sure if she's finished yet.
yeah.
Like we thought she was going to be finished at 1, and then she had another one, and we're like, oh wow, we didn't expect that from you, Lisa. And so I
Yeah.
would I wouldn't be surprised if she had a third, maybe
Yeah.
even a fourth. She's really grown up the last few years.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, for me, I'm
Life
sitting
is
there. I'm
good.
like, I'm looking at Eric and Becky's family. I'm like, 5, dang. Then I look at Jeremiah's family and I'm like, 6. I'm like, holy crap.
I couldn't do that. I think it's just for me personally, I don't think I can handle that many kids. But
The largest I've ever seen, well, largest that I've personally known
mhm,
was there was a guy that I graduated high school with. He came from a mixed family.
mhm.
So he had, if you took his siblings and his step siblings in, their family altogether had, I believe, 20 kids.
Oh my
So
God.
he had 8 kids in his family, and then his stepmother had 12 kids. And so
That
all of them together was 20. And that's the absolute largest I've heard, and that's even insane for Utah Mormons.
yeah, that's insane. Like, how do you even afford that? That's the thing. Like, kids are so expensive, you know? It's like, can't. I can't. Personally, I don't have a lot of patience, so I'm like, nah, it's not happening.
Yeah, no, I totally understand that. I think, well, but that's the thing is when you have that many kids, unless you're having like quintuplets and stuff, they're pretty spread out.
Yeah.
So it's like by the time they got married and they ended up having, oh my gosh, we have 20 kids, it was like 6 of those kids were married with their own, so probably even more than that. But,
Yeah.
the more spread out it is, the more, because like I said, with my family, Alex was born when Jeremiah was coming back from his mission.
Hmm.
So we had, I think we had like, because the thing is, yeah, Jeremiah came back from his mission, and then Ben left on his mission,
Uh-huh.
because there's pretty much like 2 years between everyone in my family.
That's kind of how it
Um,
is in my family too.
and so it's kind of like, so it's like, I'm trying to think, we maybe had in the entirety of not my life, but my parents' married life,
Hmm.
like in the entirety of my parents' married life, they probably had all 8 kids living under the same roof for maybe a month, you know?
Yeah.
And that's not in a stretch. That's just on and off. Like, oh, this one's off on a mission. Oh, this one came back. Oh, this one just left on a mission. Oh,
Yeah.
this one just went off to school. We'll never see them again, you know? So
Yeah.
I think all 8 of us being under the same roof, seriously, like the combined time of my parents' full marriage, not including family reunions, is
Hmm.
like a month. I'm pretty sure we've all been together for family reunions longer than we have been for like when we actually live together,
Yeah.
considering how long you will spend like a week together every year.
Yeah. Oh man. Yeah, I was there's 11. This isn't as bad obviously as yours, but I have my oldest brother is 11 years older than I am. So, I was pretty young when he left the house. So, but
Yeah, with my brother, we had and I come from a large extended family too.
mhm.
My grandma had my grandma, I'm trying to think. She had 9 kids, but one of them uh, passed away from polio. So she had 8 kids, and there's another family. So my dad's sister also
Mhm.
had 8 kids, and then like the average of like the rest of them were like decent size, like around 5, like 4 to 6 kids. So I
Yeah.
have tons of cousins. So it got to the point that uh, when Alex was born, it was like we just had the slew of homecomings of all of the older cousins and stuff. And
Uh-huh.
so it's like, oh my gosh, so and so is coming home, and we're like, and so we'd go see him. And so um, we actually it's like my mom's favorite story,
Mhm.
but my brother Jeremiah was coming home from his mission, and he was our first missionary.
Yeah.
But Alex, being so young, associated missionaries with cousins. And so my mom was like, "We need to go. We're going to the airport to pick up Jeremiah from his mission." And Alex was like, "Wait, I don't know that cousin." And it's like, "It's not your cousin. That's your brother." He's like, "What?" Like
Oh.
he was born at the time that like Jeremiah left. That it was like foreign to him that he had an older brother named Jeremiah. He just wasn't there.
That's pretty bad. Dang. Oh man. Wow. Yeah, we're not that spread out in my family. But
Okay. But so everything's making sense conceptually.
yep, sure is.
Okay. And you freaking nailed that test yesterday, so you have an awesome foundation to build on. So we just keep building on off of that for the rest of the semester, and you're going to nail every test that comes our way.
I know if I get an A in this class, I'm like gonna jump up and down. I'm like, this is insane.
And the awesome thing is, as opposed to just memorizing equations and plugging and chugging, you are learning these things conceptually so that whatever question Sister Cook throws your way, you can look at it and figure out what she's asking. Because she had some curveballs on that test yesterday. Like there are some that I had to look at and stop and think about for a while.
Yeah, so. No, same. But I took those deep yoga breaths. I was like,
perfect. That's still more like a labor. I have a sister who's a midwife, so I know. You need to go deep.
Man, that is so relaxing. It's so nice to do that. Anyways. Okay. All right. Well, enjoy your holiday weekend, and I will see you on Tuesday.
Okay, perfect. I will catch you later.
Cool.